Welcome to Eugene Cannabis TV. You made the trip. We're here with some more news stories. Things are really happening in the cannabis world, especially in Eugene. Especially in Oregon. You got DanK here, and Jeremy came in, and we're talking. We've gone through the stories. I appreciate having Jeremy come in and being on the show. We've got a great crew. We've got. I tell people it takes 4 people to do a show, and we do it. We've done it with 3 for a long time, and sometimes we've been down to 2. So we always use some help. So come on down any Monday night at 7:30 to the Eugene, to the Cannabis CB20 Community TV 29 Studios behind Sheldon High School, next to the right around the corner from the KRVM radio station. So anyway, I'll get right into this editorial. This is the first thing we got lined up. This was editorial published in the Register Guard, March 2nd. Once again, they've got it wrong. See, they titled it, "Allow local pot sales bans. Cities, counties should be able to bar dispensaries."
Yeah, right.
Oregon legalized medical marijuana 16 years ago, sort of. Patients have no way to legally obtain the drug except by growing their own or arranging for someone to grow it for them. Last year, however, the legislature approved the sale of medical marijuana by dispensaries. State registration of the dispensaries begins Monday. Last year's law should have given local governments the right to prohibit dispensaries within their boundaries. The legislature should act now to correct the oversight. If marijuana were like any other drug, the argument against a local option on retail sales would be compelling. Cities and counties should not have the right to block patients' access to medicine.
Exactly right.
We can agree with that up to that point.
Yeah, we can agree on that point anyways.
But marijuana is unique. For starters, it's illegal under federal law. The U.S. Justice Department has chosen to look the other way as states legalize medical marijuana. But the federal law still stands, and the next Attorney General could have a different attitude towards its enforcement. Cities and counties that choose to abide by the federal law should not be compelled to do otherwise. Another difference is that no other drug will be sold through single-purpose, lightly regulated outlets. No special training is required of marijuana retailers. There will be no state standards for purity, safety, or testing of the drug.
They got that part wrong.
Yes, they do.
The state standards do require testing for purity, safety, and potency.
No rules govern the sale of products made from or infused with marijuana. Again, that's another one. No sales govern the sale of products. Yes, the standard food packaging standards
apply to those. Yeah. And again, those have to be tested under the new laws that passed.
The differences between dispensaries and pharmacies are so many that local governments should not be required to treat them alike. Still another difference could arise soon. Oregon may follow Washington State and Colorado in legalizing recreational use of marijuana. If that happens, a whole new set of questions arises, including whether medical marijuana dispensaries could also sell pot for recreational use. The possibility that every dispensary could turn into a full-service marijuana emporium is reason enough for some local officials to hesitate. The state should respect any cities and counties that choose to wait and see how the business of marijuana retailing develops. 10 local jurisdictions, including Florence, are contemplating dispensary bans. Medical marijuana patients in those places would have to get their medicine elsewhere. But those patients' access would be no more restricted than it is now. As marijuana eases into the mainstream, it's important that it not be forced on any community. The legislature should let local governments opt out. So that's what the Register Guard had to say, and that's a prime reason for write a letter to the editor. This is a perfect time for you to get up off the couch and write your opinion to the Register Guard and let them know how you think. You might even get it published, so we definitely need to fight back and strike out on injustice anytime we can.
Yeah, they keep getting it wrong.
They keep getting it wrong.
There's
That's right.
no reason why any patient should have to go to a different city to get their medicine.
The Register Guard has had 3 editorials calling for the legislature to put a legalization initiative on the ballot, saying the legislature ought to do it because we want it done right. And I have a big argument with that. The legislature, the pinheads in Salem, I wouldn't put trust it to them. But anyway, that's what the Register Guard thinks that they ought to be doing it. So
Oregon House delays vote on medical marijuana dispensary bill by Christian Gaston.
Yeah, this is out today now. This is the latest thing. Go ahead.
The Oregon House delayed a vote on a bill that would grant local governments more control over medical marijuana dispensaries Monday. Controversy over the timing of the vote on the bill led to an early end to the House floor session Friday. The bill has support in the House to pass, but it faces challenges in the Senate. I think there is a very uncertain path in the Senate if there isn't some more discussion, Representative Brian Clem of Salem said. I don't think this bill will become law without further negotiation. The original version of Senate Bill 1531 would have given local governments the ability to ban dispensaries, but it was amended in the Senate to only allow local governments to regulate dispensaries, not ban them outright, and that's how it should be. That version of the bill passed the Senate unanimously, but a House committee amended the bill to allow outright bans. Senator Floyd Provansky of Eugene has said cities and counties already have the ability to regulate the time, place, and manner of medical marijuana dispensaries, but doesn't support giving them the ability to ban them outright. Representative Andy Olson of Albany said it was important for the legislature to act today, the day that Oregon's medical marijuana dispensary rules go into effect. If the legislature does not pass Senate Bill 1531, the inevitable court case could result in a significant portion of the medical marijuana program being struck down as unconstitutional, says Olson, reading from an opinion drafted by the Office of Legislative Counsel. Representative Jeff Barker of Aloha said the bill sailed out of his House Judiciary Committee and should sail off the House floor. He paraphrased Moses in an effort to sway his colleagues on Monday. People let my bill go, Barker said. And House Majority Leader Al Hoyle said the goal isn't to bottle the bill up, but to find a way for it to pass. What we're asking in here is to hold the bill over for one day so we can continue discussions, so we can find the consensus. Well, if it hasn't passed now, it's too late because the dispensaries are already getting issued permits.
Right, and you missed the last line. The House voted 31 to 27 to delay the vote until Tuesday. And Representative Andy Olson, the Republican out of Albany, that's the retired state cop that probably the medical marijuana's biggest enemy in the legislature, as far as I know, as far as I can see, at least my opinion.
Well, if they delayed
He's a retired state cop, and every time he tries to make an improvement on the program, it was something to hamstrung or screw up the program, and he calls it improving. So this guy is
well, if they delayed it till Tuesday, it's too late because they're already issuing licenses today.
Oh, yeah.
So you can't just issue someone a license and change the rules later and say, we issued you a license, but we're not going to let you do it in the city.
So we'll see how that goes. It's supposed to vote tomorrow, and by the time this show airs, it'll be all over. So you'll know then. So, but anyway, that's what's happening as of Monday. Yeah. So, excuse me. And this is a story that we didn't get to last week, and we wanted to get to this one. This is really pretty big. It's a very big, in more ways than one. There's a lot more text than we can read. That's one. But the other thing is Epilepsy Foundation calls for increased medical marijuana access and research. So that's really big news for an organization that big and that well known to actually call out and ask for more medical marijuana research, because epilepsy is known to help patients, but again, we need to do more research.
Cannabis is known to help epilepsy patients as long as it's high CBD.
Yeah, yeah.
So for instance, like they're trying to make CBD tinctures that are mostly completely CBD to help with epilepsy, because the THC can make it worse sometimes.
Right. THC is what's known to give the marijuana the high, the euphoric type of aspect of it. CBD, actually, you don't feel it, but it's the part of it it's the medical benefit.
It's a cannabinoid with the most medical benefit, and it's been known to put cancer into remission and big things like that.
And now the technology, they're actually able to breed plants different ways, and so there's people who are working on breeding plants that are very low in THC and extremely high in CBD, which is a big boon for medical patients. So it's anyway, the Epilepsy Foundation. It says, as parents and as advocates, we feel an urgency to respond and take action on an issue that has been brought to the Epilepsy Foundation from individuals we serve across the country: the use of marijuana to treat epilepsy. We write this with advice and support from Nathan Fountain, chairman of our professional advisory board, and with advice and support from a range of other leading epilepsy professionals and board members. 2.3 million Americans live with epilepsy, a neurological condition that includes recurring seizures. More than 1 million of them live with uncontrolled seizures. Some of these people may be helped by surgery or other non-drug treatments, but for many, no answers have been found yet. People with uncontrolled seizures live with the continual risk of serious injuries and loss of life. So that's real exciting for them.
I seen a clip on Weed Wars where they gave this little boy who had seizures every day of his life a CBD tincture, and with just a few drops, he went like weeks with no seizures.
Exactly. It's incredible. And by the way, I'll make a quick announcement here. We're looking. I just became a friend of mine. Was diagnosed with terminal lung cancer. So, if anybody's out working with the high-strength tinctures like the Rick Simpson oil, the Apache Tears kind of thing, please get a hold of us. You can hold it on the show. dankbagman@hotmail.com. Send me a note if you know where somebody's working with that. Definitely could use some help.
President Obama stopped the drug wars, the drama, arrested me for a G of Jane, comma Mary. Take that money for the jail cells, keep it from the cartels. Don't help a drug dealer millionaire, tax weed and give a brother health care. It's cannabis, miracle medicine that gives me bliss. Used to making rope and giving somebody hope, that sounds familiar. Be the candidate we thought you were. Norm to the L.org, National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Norm to the L.org. Go to the website and help out the cause.
Welcome back to the second segment of Eugene Cannabis TV. You got DanK here and Jeremy, and we're talking about came across an interesting article here, and it talked about the Standardized Field Sobriety Testing. I thought I'd run over this real quickly, because we're always talking about wanting people to be safe, and being safe, like keeping your medicine put away where you can't smell it. Put it inside the baking bags that we've talked about and shown on this show before, and to keep the smell down. Because that's one of the biggest things that a police officer can do is say, "I smell marijuana," and who's going to contest that? Who can tell? And that starts off the whole thing. So if they don't smell it in the first place, you're better off. But if you do get to this standardized field testing, this is some of the things that you need to know about. The Standardized Field Sobriety Test is called SFST. is a battery of 3 tests administered and evaluated in a standardized manner to obtain validated indicators of impairment and establish probable cause for arrest. So the 3 tests are horizontal gaze, it's the HGN, horizontal gaze nystagmus, and that's HGM, walk and turn, and one-leg stand. These tests are administered systematically and are evaluated according to measured responses of the suspect. HGN testing, horizontal gaze, nystagmus, I can't even pronounce it, is involuntary jerking of the eye that occurs naturally as the eyes glaze to the side. Under normal circumstances, this occurs when the eyes are rotated at high peripheral angles. However, when a person is impaired by alcohol, it is exaggerated and may occur at lesser angles. An alcohol-impaired person will also often have difficulty smoothly tracking a moving object. In the HGN test, the officer observes the eyes of the suspect as the suspect follows a slow-moving object, such as a pin or a small flashlight, horizontally with his or her eyes. The examiner looks for 3 indicators of impairment in each eye. If the eye cannot follow a moving object smoothly, if jerking is distinct, when the eye is at maximum deviation, and if the angle of onset is jerking is within 45 degrees of center, if between, well, anyway, go on in the details, but then that's the eye test. And then the walk and turn. The walk and turn test and one-leg stand test are divided attention tests that are easily performed by most unimpaired people. They require a suspect to listen to and follow instructions while performing simple physical movements. Impaired persons have difficulty with tests requiring their attention to be divided between simple mental and physical exercises. Yeah, and half the time the weather's really horrible. You got traffic roaring by, and then you're supposed to supposed to act and walk normally.
And most people can't do that if they're sober, so it's not really a great test.
Exactly. In the walk and turn test, the subject is directed to take 9 steps, heel to toe, along a straight line. After taking the steps, the subject must turn on one foot and return in the same manner in the opposite direction. The examiner looks for 8 indicators of impairment. If the suspect cannot keep balance while listening to the instructions, begins before the instructions are finished, stops while walking to regain balance, does not touch heel to toe, steps off the line, uses arms to balance, makes an improper turn, or takes an incorrect number of steps. The NHTSA research indicates that 79% of individuals who exhibit 2 or more indicators of the performance of the test will have a blood alcohol content of 0.08 or greater. One-leg stand. In the one-leg stand test, the suspect is instructed to stand with 1 foot approximately 6 inches off the ground and count aloud by thousands, 1001, 1002, etc., until told to put the foot down. The officer times the subject for 30 seconds. The officer looks for 4 indicators of impairment, including swaying while balancing, using arms to balance, hopping to maintain balance, and putting the foot down. NHTSA research indicates that 83% of individuals who exhibit 2 or more indicators of the performance of the test will have a blood alcohol content of 0.08 or
I'd say about 80% of people couldn't keep their foot up for 30 seconds, even no matter what.
True, especially if they're physically impaired. So anyway, that's just a quick rundown of what the standardized field sobriety testing is about. The main thing, remember that if they ask you if you would submit to a what's the name of it? Now I forgot the name of it.
Basically, it's say a yes to P, say no to DRE.
Exactly. Yes, that's right. Drug recognition expert, DRE. That's it. If they ask you if you submit to a DRE evaluation, always say no. It's just like saying, well, can we search your car? You always say no, regardless of what they say to you. Don't let them scare you. Stand your grounds and say no. We had an attorney on the show years ago, Brian Michaels, that told us that if you are asked to evaluate, if you submit to a DRA evaluation, you say no. If they tell you you have to take a drug test, a P test, after that, you do have to take the test, but you got an out because you said no, and it's being done against your wishes. So that gives the attorney something to fight. So like Jeremy said, that's what he told us, is no to DRE, yes to P. So always remember that and keep yourself safe. And speaking of that, it comes right up to an interesting story out of Colorado. This is in the channel9news.com. Colorado police prepare to spot pot DUI cases. Colorado State Trooper Josh Lewis wants to make it clear that he's not out to bust anyone, not out to bust people who partake responsibly in Colorado's newly legal supply of pot. It doesn't matter how I feel about it. The law is what it is, Lewis said. Just like for alcohol, the law for pot is the same. You can't drive impaired. DUI cases for drugs generally begin with a traffic stop. Every reason under the sun, Lewis said: too fast, too slow, impeding traffic, not signaling, falling too closely, driving on the shoulder, driving on the opposite lane of traffic. If during a traffic stop the officer thinks that the driver might be stoned, they'll try to figure out if that's the case. They'll generally ask the driver to take a standard roadside sobriety test. The tests are meant to look for basic signs. Can somebody essentially do two things at once, said Lewis? Can they count out loud and walk a line? We know in driving you're going to be required to do more than one thing at any given time. In Colorado, drivers can refuse a roadside test with no penalty. But that doesn't take away the driver's ability to make an arrest on suspicion of DUI. Whether the driver fails a test or the officer has reason to believe the driver is stoned for other reasons, an arrest would be made. At that point, for alcohol, the driver would probably take a breath test. For marijuana, there is no breath test. It's a blood test or a refusal, Lewis explains. The blood test is designed to tell how high a person is at the moment, not whether they have been using pot in the last several days or weeks, like urine tests used by some employers.
But they've got that part wrong, because there's no scientific test that uses blood to tell when someone smoked marijuana.
That's because the blood measure tests active THC in the blood stream, while the urine test measures a metabolic bolite of THC, the form it takes after being broken down by the human body. Colorado law allows drivers to refuse the blood test, too. However, that comes with harsher penalties than a DUI. You're going to use your license longer by refusing, Lewis said. Ahead of legal sales, state lawmakers adopted a legal blood limit of 5 nanograms of blood for THC, a move which allows a jury to make a conviction based on test results alone. That comes long after the traffic stop. Nothing has changed for us. We're looking for the same things we have before. Driving under influence of anything is still illegal, Lewis said. Pot is about to get easier to get in Colorado. If you use it in a drive, a DUI will be pretty easy to get too. Anyway, so it's word of wise. Of course, that's in Colorado, and we don't have that.
But we had a well, this is Colorado, but we had a Washington and state expert, Eric Talkfer, law enforcement against prohibition, whatever that's called.
Oh, LEAP.
Yeah.
Law enforcement officers against prohibition, huh?
Yeah. He was talking against the same issue, saying that the tests that they're trying to do have no validity because there's no scientific evidence that 5 nanoliters of cannabis in your system would be able to tell that you smoked it even the same day. It could have been sometime in the last 30 days.
Yeah, and that was one of the complaints that people have talked about, is setting a level, and like Jeremy's saying, there's no scientific proof saying they are intoxicated at that level. So it's a real mess, and we'll see how that works out. There's going to be a lot of things. We're going to see how they go.
A regular medical user would have up to like 50 times that amount just if they consumed it the same day.
Possibly. Let's go and do the drug war headlines. We're just out of time. We got just time to squeeze them in. You want to go ahead and read that?
The capture of El Chapo, a capo gone, but a trade goes on. The rest of Joaquin El Chapo Gomez as legendary head of the Sinaloa cartel is big news, but will it have any impact? Oh, and these are Stop the Drug War headlines for 2/27.
Right, top lawyer's opinion threatens D.C. marijuana legalization initiative. The District of Columbia's top lawyer has thrown a wrench in the works for D.C. marijuana legalization initiative proponents. He says it should not be approved by the Board of Elections because a provision of it violates federal law. His opinion is not binding, but it carries weight. Let me go ahead and finish these other two. Medical marijuana update. The Epilepsy Foundation comes out with support, and we just did that story, so you know about that one. And this week's corrupt cop stories. A drug court probation officer parties down with one of his clients. A Georgia cop goes to prison for ripping off a drug dealer, and so does a Philadelphia cop. Keep an eye on Philly. The stench is really rising there. So that's what we got for you today. Come in and show up next week, and we'll have some more news for you. In the meantime, support medical or all marijuana use, and especially the lawmakers that are trying to do the right thing. Let's make it legal.